Well, we have one more topic. And this one's kind of an interesting one. It was one
Yes,
of
it
those ones
is.
where I was like, didn't see that coming. So I'll be curious what people think.
Yeah, so a little bit of information here. The short version that we're going to start with here is the fact that the Supreme Court decided to keep on these gun bans and
Hmm.
restrictions on guns that were in the states of Maryland and Delaware. This was
Hmm.
after Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh decided not to vote with other conservative justices who were willing to take up the case, which left these
Hmm.
laws in power. But give you some more details here. Got this out of Reuters recently, where the Supreme Court, this was just yesterday, refused to hear the Second Amendment challenges to semi-automatic rifles in Maryland, California, and other states as well. These gun right advocates say that AR-15s are owned by millions of Americans, and that they argue the Second Amendment protects these weapons and that they are in common use by law-abiding citizens. It's the same stuff we always hear. I feel
Yep.
like at the end of the day, the NRA just has little pamphlets they just throw at people. And it's like, hey,
Literally.
just say this and get going with it. So three conservative justices. We had Justice Clarence Thomas.
Shocking.
Shocker. I wonder how many yacht rides came with this. Samuel
Listen.
Alito
Mm.
and Neil Gorsuch. They voted to hear the Second Amendment challenge. They
Neil?
wanted so they wanted to take this case. He's all over the place. We don't know
I
what's
know.
going on
I
with
can't
Neil.
figure out what's happening with him these days.
But weird enough, Justice Kavanaugh was the one who decided not to cast a vote in favor of this.
Listen.
He called the lower court ruling. He called the lower court ruling upholding Maryland's ban questionable, but
Hmm.
agreed with the majority in turning down the appeal for right now. So he's like, no, we don't want to hear this case right now. He said, in my view, the court should and presumably will address the AR-15 session issue soon, maybe in the next term or two. So he's essentially saying, yes, we are going to eventually have this conversation, but we just don't want to have it right now. So we are
Kicking it
leaving.
down the kicking it
Yeah.
down the road.
So we're leaving these bans
Hmm.
in place. So wanted just to note that California adopted the nation's first assault weapons ban in 1989.
Hmm.
Since then, there have been several other states. There's about like 10 of them in effect to have similar bans. If this challenge was heard and they did actually overturn the ruling here, all of these individual states that have assault weapons bans, they would all be null and void.
Yeah.
So that was what was on the table at this time. And it sounds like Kavanaugh's essentially saying that they're going to have this conversation one way or another. So who knows what that will look like at that moment, Natalie? But as of right now, these assault weapons bans in these several blue states do stay in place. What was your reaction when you heard this story?
Well, I always find it funny, like when state rights matter, when states' rights don't matter, and so we're going to have these sort of federal conversations when it supports, the NRA, so to speak, or we're going to do things like, oh no, women can't cross state lines to get an abortion. Suddenly, the federal government's enforcing that one. So it's always interesting to me that the party of small government it's not so true anymore, right? And I thought this was also interesting. I was reading this today and it said the majority first concluded that assault weapons are not protected by the Second Amendment's right to bear arms at all because in essence they are military style weapons designed for sustained combat operations that are ill-suited and disproportionate to the need for self-defense. And I thought that was also just an interesting point to bring into the mix because at one point
Yeah,
there was a nationwide assault rifle ban, and then George W. Bush let it lapse, and now we've
yeah,
had chaos ensue ever since. And you and I are of a generation that we started as we were in high school, middle school, growing up seeing Columbine and the different shootings in our own neighborhoods, in our own schools, and we've grown up with our friends who have had issues with gun violence in their homes. So this is not something that I think is so far away from us as people where we can look at something like this and say, yeah, why the hell does anyone need an assault rifle? If you go to an army base, you can't just like use your guns whenever you want them. Like you have to check them out. They're under lock and key. Like it's a very regulated process because it's respected. These are weapons of war, and we know what kind of deadly force can be done with something like this, especially when we're aiming them at children and civilians. And so for me, I think what shocked me the most is how unpredictable this Trump appointed court really has been, because I can't tell from day to day what the hell they're going to do. And
Nope.
I do think Kavanaugh is definitely like a pick me girl, where he really wants to be liked. And I could feel that from way back when he was being confirmed. He just has this, like, for anybody that's watching Bravo, he's got like this Sheena Shea energy about him. It's like, pick me. I know this is going over your head, but it's very like, he wants to be in the cool kid crowd. And this is what I've always picked up from him. And so for me, this means, what does he think? How are things going to be talked about on Reddit, and how is he going to be perceived? I truly feel this energy from him. So I wasn't sure if maybe he thought, I don't want to be on the wrong side of this, or what, but I'm never sure which way he is going to blow. And I just think that is really fascinating, because it shows you at the end of the day that even when certain people are pretty much cherry picked for certain roles because they think they're going to toe the line, that's not always the case. And also, I think sometimes people behave reactionary because they don't want to be seen as Trump's toady or somebody's, boy, so to speak, in that way. So I think there could be some ego playing in, like, oh, you think you know what I'm going to do? You think you have an idea? Maybe you don't. And so I don't know. It's very interesting watching this terrible court play out day after day, because I'm always sitting there with popcorn going, what's happening? I just wish it wasn't so detrimental, everything that they're doing. But it is wild. It is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't make heads or tails of the Supreme Court and the decisions that they choose to make, the decisions they choose not to make. I mean, I have seen them buck Donald Trump more than I assumed that they would.
Same.
And then, there's times where you're like, oh, well, maybe they're rational. Maybe they actually do have some semblance of sanity. No. And then, the Dobbs decision falls. And so, like, you don't know what to expect from the Supreme Court.
No, you don't.
Let me just transition to the actual debate itself, because
yes.
Kavanaugh is not saying that we're not going to hear this case. He's saying we're not going to hear this case today. So we're going to hear this case.
Right. But not today.
But not today.
Which I'm telling you, I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, for whatever his reasoning is,
right.
He's acknowledging that we're going to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to get out in front of it for a second. Just have this conversation. We've all had this conversation. We're going to have it again and again and again. And you know what? I used to get really annoyed by these moments where it's like, hey, we've had this conversation before. We don't need to have it again. But you know what? Unfortunately, we are living in a time now where everything's being relitigated. Yes. We thought we thought child labor laws were a thing of the past. No, that's back in vogue now. We thought that women had rights to their bodies, but that's over now. We thought that public schools were just agreed upon as good things. Now we want to get rid of those too. So I mean, unfortunately, the one thing the Republicans have proven to us over time is that rights are actually things that you have to consistently fight on the behalf of, because they are never satisfied with trying to leave these things in place. They want to constantly roll things back.
Yeah.
When the assault weapons ban went into place in 1994, it stayed in place for 10 years. As you mentioned, George W. Bush let it lapse. During the time that it was in effect, there was a 43% drop for gun-related deaths in the United States of America.
That's huge.
Now, people will say, like, well, hey, you didn't eliminate gun violence, so why even do this in the first place? I got to tell you, 43% is a huge number, is an absolutely colossal number. And I'm of the belief that, yes, you know what? You just get it out there in the open. There are no gun laws that you're going to put into place that are going to eliminate gun violence in the United States of America. It's just not going to happen. Right. While there are guns in America, there'll be gun violence in America. But if I can take the number of people dying every year down from like 1,000 to 600, I think the 400 people who survived who otherwise wouldn't have is worth the regulation.
Oof.
I don't know.
Such a controversial statement.
I don't know how you argue against that unless I don't even want to get into some of the minds of these people.
Well, I mean, like, I can't remember what her name is, but she was a Republican when confronted about the Medicaid cuts, and she said, "Well, we're all going to." Thank you. And she said, "We're all going to die anyway." I mean, this is the nihilistic moral apathy that we absolutely do not need in our government. And it trickles into all these different things, very much including gun violence, where people are like, well, what's it matter? Some people are still going to die. And to your point, it's not just saving those lives. It's the ripple effect that now their children aren't devastated by losing one or both parents. Now their family members aren't devastated by losing a sibling or a cousin or a mother or a father. It is a community thing. A community leader isn't gone. That can't really be replaced by the energy and the love and the passion and the commitment that they gave to their communities. So for me, we can't just quantify the value of human life. We actually have to care about human life. And Ron Elliott makes a good point. She's a Christian nationalist looking forward to the apocalypse. We cannot allow this white fundamentalism, this Christian fundamentalism, to continue to usurp and concentrate power, right, out of the hands of the people. And they can have that feeling, that philosophy. I think it must be a very sad and depressing way to exist, but they shouldn't be allowed to legislate that philosophy, in my opinion. And to me also, I also look at government as the government should be protecting human rights and expanding human rights. Once you have a human right put into place, it should not be suddenly up on for grabs just because you have a new government or a new president or whomever in power. This to me is a non-negotiable. So when we're looking at human life in general, once again, of course, people like her are going to say, well, what's it matter? We all die anyway. Of course, people are going to say that when they don't believe the climate crisis is happening, when they don't believe that healthcare is a human right, when they don't believe that COVID is killing hundreds of Americans a week. We've desensitized the hell out of this whole situation. When they don't care when they're watching genocide live streamed, why would we then assume that they would suddenly care about gun safety? So to me, it's a philosophical marker that you need to be removed from power, and we need to put in your place compassionate, logical, reason-based thinkers that want to do more for the common man, woman, person, and not just for somebody's bottom line or their pocketbook. Because I am really sick and tired of this idea of running our government like a business. And we've now seen Trump and Elon Musk run that business into the ground anyway within the last 6 months. So that didn't work. So why don't we have some philosopher kings and queens and people take hold and look at it from a humanistic lens of how do we improve the lives of the people who are here and not the potential life that is so easy to look at through rose-colored glasses.
Got to be careful with those philosopher kings. I mean, one of them was named Alexander. He tried to conquer the world. A lot of cities are so named after him. Got to be careful with these people.
I love that your comment. I'm just saying we need to try a different approach. Okay, all right.
You said philosopher king. My mind went straight to Alexander. I was
I love you.
I gotta be careful with those.
All right, maybe just queens then. I'm all here for that. Bring on the matriarchy. Go on.
I think that it's really important to be vigilant in these times when we're having these conversations, because I think, unfortunately, we have a incredibly polarized and loud ideological minority in this country who sometimes makes you believe that they're the majority when they're really not.
Right.
You have a House of Representatives that is heavily, the product of God, I'm forgetting the name here, Natalie, for a second here. Gerrymandering, right? So a lot of members in the House have their districts because of gerrymandering, where they went state by state and made sure that they chose the districts with the people that they wanted to have. You have a lot of people in the Senate who they only exist because we pick our Senate based on having 2 from every state, which means that states like Wyoming get 2 senators and states like California get, 2 senators, and which makes total sense. We have a president who's picked about the Electoral College, right? So another system that's once again kind of like rigged against majority rule. We have a government that is just saturated with a minority ideology that really shouldn't be in the position of power that it's in the first place. So And also, that's not even getting to the fact that the right wing also is the political movement that spends billions of dollars on their propaganda networks
That's
every
right.
year.
That's
Not
right.
just in the mainstream with places like Fox News, but also in the new media sphere. They spend so much money on places like the Daily Wire, like Tim Pool, like Candace Owens gets a lot of money. So many of these people are just sucking up so much billionaire cash right now. So we are flooded in every way, shape, and form with a conservative ideology. And it kind of, I think sometimes it drowns out everything else and it makes you believe that they actually do have a majority right now when really they just found an effective way to be a minority ideology and still essentially control the conversation and the narratives everywhere.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that it's important that as that is happening, that we recognize that, the majority of people in the country actually do agree with us, and we can't be drowned out by their voices. Because I think sometimes it's easy to give in, especially in these moments where it feels like every day we're waking up to a new terrible headline from the Trump administration. I mean, we talked about this before, Natalie. They want to essentially make you submit through just this just constant bombardment with just terrible news day after day after day after day. And it almost just pushes you into a place of despair where you don't even want to have these conversations anymore. Right. But it's so important that we continue to do so. And I'm glad that we had some more conversations here today, Natalie.
Me as well, Desmond. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody that joined us today. I do think it's important that we recognize the power of media and that we recognize that even with the billions and billions of dollars being spent on propaganda, it's not working because there's so many of us that still believe in each other, and building that community is really vital to our survival as a thinking, growing experience, a collective experience together. So I appreciate you. And thank you so much for doing this with me. I love our conversations.
Yeah, and we will be back on Friday. For our next live stream. So if you don't want to miss that, please go ahead and click at the top of the screen right now. Make sure that you are subscribed. You can watch the playback on Substack, YouTube, Spotify. If you're not subscribed already in those places, make sure you do so now. Links for Natalie's stuff will be in the episode description. So you can go ahead and click on that and you will see all of Natalie's links. Go follow her on Instagram if you're one of those Instagram people.
Thank you.
So,
if you're one of those people.
Some people swore off Instagram. Some people said they went back to Instagram.
Listen,
it's a whole thing. But Natalie's trying to get to 7,000 followers on Instagram. So
help me get there, guys.
One at a time.
One at a time. No, I appreciate everybody. Thanks so much, Desmond.
Yeah. Any final notes?
No, I mean, let's just, keep talking about the things that matter, and please share this if you believe in the things that matter as well.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We will see you on Friday.
Bye, everybody.